You think that making these pretty mind maps, making these pretty notes are helping you, and in reality they may help you understand it, but when you don't have those notes, how do you answer the question? Can you even answer the question about those notes? I do not want to see you highlighting your notes, rewriting the textbook in 2023. As you guys know, mocks actually humble you. You think you're doing well and then you get your mock results back and you get slapped in the face with such a bad grade and you think, what went wrong? Mocks. Everyone's favorite time of the year, right? I'm just joking. We all hate it. The stress, the panic, the cramming. It is all too much and it can honestly get overwhelming, especially in the middle of the year. So how can we overcome this and how can we revise efficiently and less painfully for our mocks? Let's find out in this video. When you're thrown into the deep end and told that you have mocks in 2 weeks, it can honestly be a very, very stressful time. You may go into panic mode. You may think, I don't have enough time to revise. I don't even know where to start. There's so many exams in 1 week, and you may just shut down and not do anything at all. You might start to second guess yourself and think it's impossible to even revise and just give up entirely. So I'm going to be going through what you should do 1 week before your mocks, including how to plan your time effectively, how to use the grade 9 method for revising, and what you should do for specific subjects, especially for your mocks. So let's find out in this video. So as you guys know, these videos take a lot of time and effort, so to show your support, be sure to like, comment and subscribe for more, as well as sharing it with a friend, cousin, anyone that you know that will help. Be sure to share it as it really supports my channel. So let's talk about what you should be doing 1 week before your mocks. So 1 week, it's not that much time, probably stressed, you probably don't know where to start, so let me help you. Planning your time effectively is the first thing to do. You shouldn't just go into revision mode and just start revising anything with no order, no priorities. You're just wasting your time and you're just not going to be effective. Make yourself a mock timetable if you haven't got one already of all of the exams, when they're going to happen and what content they're being assessed on. So make sure you write whether it's paper 1 or paper 2. You don't want to be revising calculator questions or a non-calculator exam. You want to know what you're going to do in that exam and what it's going to test you on. And as well as this, you need this timetable to know how to plan your revision. If you have a biology exam the next day and you're here revising physics, which is on Friday, your priorities may not be correct and you may end up not doing as well on biology because you didn't give it the time and effort that it needed, or you'll do better on physics. Ideally, you want to be balanced in every subject so that you get the grades that you need and prioritize things in terms of difficulty and when the exam is coming up. What you should do is sort out the subjects that are coming up in the mocks in terms of difficulty level. So if you find something really easy, put it at the top. So let's say I find religious studies really easy and then I find physics the hardest, so I'll put it at the bottom. So an example where difficulty of a subject may be prioritized over when the exam is coming up would be, for example, let's say you did have physics on Wednesday and you did have biology on Tuesday. However, you know you've been doing really, really bad in physics and you don't know a lot of the content. So you do want to revise more for physics, even though your biology exam is closer. This is a question that you have to ask yourself. Is it more difficult or should I revise it because it's closer? You need to make sure you know your priorities. So once you've done this, you can assign an amount of hours for each subject or just put them in a little timetable and then plan it according to what's coming up and also what needs the most help. So for example, something like maths, you can't cram it the day before. So you should ideally be doing it throughout the week, despite the fact that you might only have maths at the end of the week. You want to be revising it consistently throughout the week, especially because it's one of those subjects where you can't just spend the whole night cramming and expect to get a good grade. It requires practice, so just make sure you do that. And for each subject, you want to write down the topics that are coming up because it's mocks, so it may not necessarily be having every single topic on the specification. It may not even have all of the ones that you've covered. The teacher might only want to test you on Romeo and Juliet, for example, in English. So make sure you know what's coming up because you don't want to be preparing for something that isn't going to come up in the exam. It's just a waste of time and you have limited time already. So now let's talk about how you can revise for your mocks. So revising for your mocks is pretty much no different to revising for your actual exams. In fact, the way you should revise for your mocks is the way that you should ideally be revising for your exams, because you want these exams to be a reflection of what you know, so you know how to improve before your real exams. What you want to be doing is turning your passive revision methods into active ones. I do not want to see you highlighting your notes, rewriting the textbook in 2023. Even in any year, I don't want to see it. It's not effective and you know better. Your exam is tomorrow and you're making notes for the first time the day before. Be for real with yourself. Be for real. Like, come on now. There's better things you can be doing with your time, and writing notes is not it, especially right before an exam. Make notes after after the exam period, but for now it's all about practice. It's all about getting those flashcards in, getting those questions in. It's not about doing passive revision. As you guys know, mocks actually humble you. You think you're doing well and then you get your mock results back and you get slapped in the face with such a bad grade and you think, what went wrong? What went wrong was you not revising, was you not having the content in your brain, because you think that making these pretty mind maps, making these pretty notes are helping you, and in reality they may help you understand it, but when you don't have those notes, how do you answer the question? Can you even answer the question about those notes? That's what truly matters. In your exam, you're not going to be allowed any notes, any textbook, any summaries, any mind maps. So what truly matters is what is in here. So what you want to do is every method of revision that you're doing should be helping things go into your brain. So this involves methods such as blurting, flashcards, exam questions. My favorite is personally the lazy man flashcards, which I'm going to teach you how to do in this video. But if you haven't heard of it already, be sure to watch my how to cram video, because I go into detail about how to cram. This video is more about mocks. If you want to cram something for the next few days, be sure to watch that video. Many people have found it really helpful. As you guys know, especially with mocks, you may not have enough time. You're rushed for time actually. So it's really hard to make comprehensive flashcards as you normally would throughout the year. So normally you would make a flashcard on paper or on Quizlet or Anki, and it would have a question on the front and an answer on the back. And this is really effective to use throughout the year. But if you have a topic where you haven't already made the flashcards and you're already rushing for time, you want to make these lazy man flashcards. This is basically you turning the specification points into questions, but on a Word document or on a piece of paper if you want. And you basically have these questions as a way to test yourself. But instead of having an answer on the back, there's no answer. To get the answer, you have to read your notes or your textbook. So you ask yourself these questions, you say them out loud as much as you can remember, and then you go back to your notes, you go back to your textbook and see what you remember and see what you forget, and then you highlight that for next time. So if there's a question that you do particularly bad on, you want to highlight that question so you know to come back to it the most. And if there's a question that you're really good at, or if there's a specification point where you already know this point off by heart, there's no point in including it in the questions. You want to only test yourself on things you don't know, because you want to save as much time as possible. This basically reinforces the information in your mind and forces your brain to learn it, because your brain's going to get tired of looking through those notes and your brain wants to do the path of least resistance. So your brain will naturally learn how to memorize the content so that you won't have to go scavenging for the answer again. So now let's move on to subject specific advice, because this is really important. Each subject requires a different form of revision. You can't revise the same way for maths that you do for English. It's not going to work out. So now let me tell you about each subject and what I would recommend you do for your mocks. But obviously, to get the best advice and more specific advice on these subjects, you should watch my grade 9 series where I go through almost all of the subjects and how I got grade 9s in them in more detail. But today I'm just going to be telling you subject specific advice just to ace your mocks. But obviously be sure to check out these videos. They are really helpful. So now let's talk about one of the hardest subjects to revise for your mocks. It's English. English is so hard because it's not something that you can just cram and then be good at. You can know all of the content but still get a bad grade, because it's all about technique. And technique is something that's really hard to teach yourself if you haven't been learning about it in the lessons. And even if you have, you might be doing exam questions and you're not getting the grade that you want consistently and you're not sure what to do. But as you guys know, English is not all about memorization. It is about technique. And how do you master your English technique? So this nicely brings me on to today's sponsorship, which is First Rate Tutors. If you guys haven't heard of it, then get to know it. It's honestly an amazing resource. So when I was revising English, I found it so hard to master my grade 9 essays, and I would have appreciated a resource like this. First Rate Tutors have the ultimate course on both English literature and language, including how to analyze poems, including how to write grade 9 essays, exemplar essays that you can learn from and draw from. There's also content on the most common novels that come up in the exams. So you have Shakespeare, you have A Christmas Carol, you have An Unexpected Cause, and a lot more. There is honestly such a steal, and I wish I had a resource like this when I was revising for my exams. It would have saved a lot of tears. Not only is it like having a personal tutor, it's also a fraction of the price, and you can study it at your own pace. So you can watch videos over and over if you need to. You can rewind, you can go back, and it's a lifetime purchase. So you can use this all the way from year 9 to year 11, and it's just honestly really useful. You can basically think of it as an investment in your education and your own personal tutor. Be sure to check it out. Link is in the description. You don't want to miss out. In terms of the memorization portion of English, I would recommend that you learn quotes. You can make them on flashcards or on a mind map that cover many topics at the same time. So for example, in something like A Christmas Carol, if you can find something that shows Scrooge's character and Scrooge's sadness and just multiple characteristics of him, and it's a quote that covers all of that, it will be really helpful, because that means you have to memorize less. Obviously, try to find quotes which you can use for multiple types of questions. And then you can blurt out topics, you can blurt out themes, characters, and use these quotes in your blurts to just reinforce that knowledge so you know that quote for the exam. And instead of doing practice exam questions, I would recommend that you do planning. So you plan your question, you put the points that you would say, the quotes you would use, and this just helps you save time, because in the exam period, you don't have time to be writing whole exam questions, and at the same time, your teacher might not have time to mark those. And who knows, maybe an interpretation that you put in your plan will help you in the exam and you won't have to spend so much time thinking about it. Okay, so let's move on to the next subject, which is science. My best advice for science is to use Physics and Math Tutor. Physics and Math Tutor is an online exam question bank which has multiple questions. If you do all of these questions, the chances of you getting a great grade is so high. Basically, for mocks, I would recommend that you do questions on the topics that are going to come up, and especially the topics that you're finding the hardest and you're struggling the most on. This is basically the most effective thing you can do for your mocks, as it saves time and you don't have to do too much. All you have to do is answer the question, see what you know, and then fill in what you don't know. The things that you don't know, then you want to make those flashcards. You want to highlight those things and test yourself on them later on, because you want to focus on what you don't know so that when it comes up in your mocks, you'll be able to answer the question. After learning the stuff that you don't know, you want to reconsolidate that topic by doing another booklet, or you may redo the booklet you did previously and see if there's been an improvement. So now let's move on to maths. So for maths, as you guys know, there's no point in writing notes, especially during the mock period. It's not going to help you. What is going to help you is doing practice questions on the topics you're struggling the most, and even past papers, whole past papers. It's going to help you see where you're lacking in and what you need to hone in on before your mock. Let's say you go for a whole past paper and you find out that you can't really do trigonometry. You want to do an exam booklet on that so that you can focus on that and the different types of questions that come up in that topic, and then you'll be more confident for your exam. So let's talk about religious studies. For religious studies, I would recommend quotes. Those are very important, especially for the 5 and 12 mark questions, and ideally these quotes should cover a lot of topics. This just helps you because then you have to memorize less. And especially with scripture that you're not used to, or a book that you're not used to, then be sure to make flashcards on this. So you want to put the verse and the chapter on the front and then the answer on the back. This will just help you to memorize them quickly, because especially when you don't grow up with a certain religion, it's hard to memorize the quotes for their scripture. So just bear this in mind. Now for history, summarize and condense. I believe the most effective method for history is to make a little A5 book, get these revision guides and summarize each on an A5 piece of paper, and then write questions which basically summarize what you've just written. And then you answer these questions without looking at your notes, and then you look at the summary after to see whether you were right, and eventually all of the information should enter your brain and you'll be really good for the exams. Also, be sure to plan questions. So when you plan them, you should include the dates of events and basically summarize the events that happened. Be sure to watch my video on how to get a grade 9 in history, because I go into more detail about this method. For more subject specific advice, be sure to watch my individual videos on those subjects. Now let's move on to the final part of the video. I'm going to be talking about what you can do when you have multiple exams in 1 week. So the first time you have mocks is really stressful, because you're normally used to having these mini tests throughout the year and they're spread out. So you won't have a biology test and then a chemistry test the next day. You normally have them really spread out throughout the term, giving you time to revise for that specific test and prioritize that test over everything. However, this is not what it's going to be like in your exam. In your exam season, you're going to have multiple exams, if not greater than 20 in 1 month. And you have to get used to this feeling. You have to get used to this flow, because that is what is going to be a true reflection of what happens during exams. So when you have a lot of mocks condensed into 1 or 2 weeks, this is what you should do. When you're revising, ideally you shouldn't be learning new content. You should be testing yourself. So do an exam paper from start to finish if you can, or do a booklet on the topics that are going to come up. And do this in exam conditions, time conditions, and also make sure that you don't cheat, you don't look at your notes. Be honest with yourself, because this is the perfect time to. Once you do this, you mark it in another pen, see where you went wrong, write down the right answer, and memorize these answers. Not only should you memorize these answers, but try your hardest to understand them, because this is the crucial point. If you don't understand it now, you're not going to understand it tomorrow. So try to understand it, watch a video, go through an exam walkthrough of it, and see what you can learn. Doing an exam paper is a lot less stressful than learning new content, because you're not being bombarded with things you don't know. know, and even if you are, you still have the opportunity to fix it when you mark it with the right answer. When you're learning a lot of new content and you find out, oh my gosh, I haven't done this entire topic, it can be really stressful and you can honestly burn yourself out or just be overwhelmed and ultimately make mistakes on the exam day. So after you do this exam booklet, be sure to spend time learning the things you got wrong, whether it be by flashcards or by blurting. Just make sure that you focus on this, because as I always say, focus on your weaknesses, not your strength. And then I would also recommend, when you're revising throughout the week, be sure to pay attention to the future. Don't just see things in a bird's eye view and think, okay, I have biology tomorrow, so all I'm going to revise until then is biology, because you'll do biology and you'll do well, but then chemistry, you'll see a grade and then you'll be like, oh, I should have spent more time on it. So look into the future a little bit. When you have an exam that's coming up, revise for that exam of course, but also pay attention to the future. Spend maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour revising for an exam that's coming up further in the week. Don't forget about your other exams, prioritize everything. So guys, we're coming to the end of this video. I really hope you found it useful, and best of luck for your mocks. Be sure to check out First Rate Tutors because it's honestly a great resource, and I'll see you guys next time. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe and share this video. See you guys later. Bye.